Hey guys, I'm Bladen, and last year I won the Zumo Bots competition, and I also built an autonomous car. I was really hoping to come in and talk to you guys. I really wanted to get to know some of you, but I got work and I'm out of town for a while. So I'm gonna give you a lecture from here. So for those of you who are not very code savvy and you're worried that you're not gonna be able to participate or do well, I have good news, and that is that Zumo bots are unfortunately, or at least I thought so, unfortunately 50% code and 50% hardware. And you may be asking me, hey, if we can't modify our Zumo bot, how is it 50% hardware? I'll give you a little anecdote. I spent 300 or 400 hours working on the Zumo bots, went to the competition. In the very first round I lost. And I lost with the best Zumo bot that we had, with full batteries, everything. The best state I could possibly have, and I still lost the first round. And the reason that is because I can promise you this, that at least 90% of the battles you will have, you will end up in a head-on collision with another Zumo bot. Now, the only thing that'll differentiate your robot from theirs is a very small amount of weight difference, a very small amount of friction, but most importantly, your level on your shield. Because if you have two shields like this and they're even, you're just pushing back and forth, right? Even. But if you have one that's slightly lower, it will pick the other up and carry it. And if you watch any videos of last year's competition, you'll notice my bot did that almost every round. But yeah, so in desperation, after losing my first round, after putting in 300 or 400 hours, I bent my shield and won. So why can you do that? You can't, but you can. And so Mr. V told me they are cracking down on doing that this year. But if you were to take two Zumo bots in normal competition and you're just testing and testing and testing, eventually by smashing two shields together, they're going to bend downwards closer towards the ground. So I highly recommend you go and bend your shield without making it obvious. Take a rag to a vice grip. Don't show any marks. Sorry, Mr. V, for even telling people about this. Mr. V had nothing to do with this. It's all me saying it. Your shields need to be as close to the ground as possible. Now, I don't mean take the bottom and fold it up. Don't do that. Don't. Just bend your shield closer to the ground. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the 50% that you can really take into your own hands. The coding aspect. So there are 5 components to winning Zumo bots. There's your line detection, proximity sensing, following code, collision code, and ABC code. So let's start with line sensing. Line sensing is important for you guys to know about simply because it's useless. Not completely, but it's a waste of time. I spent a lot of time on line sensing code only to not hit a line, maybe like I hit a line once or twice per round, maybe, at most. The line sensing code that they give you right out of the box in the example code, it's fine. Use it. Don't waste your time on line sensing code. You will hit a line once or twice per round at most. It'll not be the difference between you winning and not winning. Put your time where it's best spent. With that said, moving on to proximity detection. So proximity detection is very, very important. It's what 60 to 80% of every competitor will have. And because of that fact, almost every Zumo bot competition that you will have will end up in a head-on collision. So I'm going to talk about how you win one of those head-on collisions here in a moment, outside of the bending your shield down. But firstly, to have good proximity code, I think there's really just one thing, and that is to have your robot come to a dead stop anywhere and just spin straight in a circle over and over. Preferably, if any of you get good enough at coding, I would recommend you make a grid layout to figure out where your robot's positioning is on the board, but that's something I couldn't even do with 400 hours into the project. So yeah, simply have your robot spin in circles. I do recommend that you guys do some isolated testing where you put a robot down on the board and just have it spin at different speeds, like 300, 400, 250, and see which one is the fastest and which is the most accurate. So once you guys have the basics down with that, now you need following code. So why is following code important? Well, following code is important because if you're in a competition and somebody has proximity code, they're going to see your robot and they're just going to lock on. They're going to drive straight towards it, and your robot may have moved. Well, guess what? Now they're hitting a line. Now they're in bad positioning. That gives you an edge. So I made following code, and what that really means is that once I see a robot, as long as one of my two front sensors has any kind of reading on it, it'll just curve directly towards it. I can't really tell you guys how to do that over a lecture, but one of the important things about following code is that if you're following a robot and you detect it with one of your far sensors, like on the sides, you need to crank your robot directly 90 degrees, maybe more, however much is needed, till you can see the robot with your front sensors again. So the next thing is collision code, and I want to speak on why collision code is important. You'll notice that in a lot of fights that two Zumo bots will come up to each other head on. One robot will hit the other, and then it'll be like, I'm not anywhere near a robot, so I'm just going to start searching for one again. It'll just start spinning in the middle of a collision. You do not want that. You do not want your Zumo bot letting up for even a second. So what you guys need to do is use collision code to detect when you hit one. Now, when you hit one, there's no good way of knowing when you're not hitting one. So the way I recommend you handle that situation is you just make your robot drive until it hits a line. At least half the time, that means you won. So the reason when you come into contact, two robots come into contact, one will just start searching, is because there's a thing with the proximity sensors that when they are directly touching, it reads that there's no robot there at all, nothing. It reads that free and clear. So the only way that I found to fix that is using collision detection code. So moving on to the ABC code, I do want to talk a little bit about positioning of your robot. Mr. V will likely let you know that you can face your robot forward towards your opponent, sideways, even backwards, I'm sure. There is no inherent benefit to turning your robot sideways or backwards. I suppose maybe backwards if for some reason you feel like you need to retreat prior. But by facing your robot directly towards your opponent and driving straight in a line, you have the most inertia, you are closer to their side, which means closer to pushing them off a platform, and most opponents aren't expecting it. So to speak on the ABC code, there is a template in a file that I made for you guys, and it doesn't have anything filled out, but the behavior of my robot when I did it was with the A button, when you pressed it, it would send the robot sideways and then back at an angle. And then C was sideways, back at an angle. And B was directly straight ahead. I definitely had the most success going straight ahead at the opponents. Like I said, the most inertia, and you get to them faster than they get to you. I really felt like I had so much more to go over. Oh, yeah. So with the proximity detection code, let me take a step back. Like I said, 90% of your fights will end up with a head-on collision between two robots. And there are not a whole lot of distinguishing factors. You will notice that some robots will go 10, 20, 30 seconds in a head-on, just this way. One of the better ways to win a head-on collision is simply coming in with a lot of inertia. So I always ran my robot at full speed, and I don't know how beneficial that was. If I had the knowledge I'm giving you guys, I probably would have had enough time to figure out fine details like that. But I recommend that you guys go and hook up a Zumo bot to a torque tester or whatever it is, I can't remember, but figure out what speeds helps the robots pull fastest, or pull the most. Like when I pull out of my driveway in the morning, I'm on a hill, and when I try to go up that hill, if I give it too much gas, my tires just spin. But by slowly applying speed, I tend to make it up the hill better. So you guys should test out finer details, like what speeds help you find the robot fastest, which speeds help most in collisions. And then you want to get to your opponent first, always. So let's say here you are, you don't know where your opponent's at, so you're spinning, right? Well, let's say you see them here, but you accidentally overspin. Well, now your robot is back in its searching mode, right? Well, you want to keep track of where you saw your opponent last. You saw it on the left side last. So now you're going to want to spin back in that direction. Small thing, obvious thing to some, but it's tiny little optimizations like that help. If I were to draw you guys a graph of how the progress looks in Zumo bots, you'll start down here, right? You'll get some line detection code. Now you're flattening out. Okay, now you got proximity code flattening out. Now you got, collision, kind of like steps, right? But if you were to smooth out that graph, right, it would kind of look, I believe, inverse exponential. I don't remember, man. But your progress flattens out. But the thing is that most people will get right about here, right? By correcting fine details like the collision code, spinning the right way, adjusting your speed during collisions, finer details like that are what's going to win you the match. If you can't bend your shield, that is, I mean. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much everything. He told me you guys are a great group. I'm sure you guys will kick some butt. I really am truly sorry that I didn't get to come in and meet some of you guys. I've been waiting for it forever, but you guys will whoop some butt. Good luck, guys.